All right, guys, since woke Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago doesn't want us talking about the young black scholar problem in Chicago, we have to move on to another city to talk about, right, that has a young black scholar problem, Baltimore, right, which is a city that is mostly black, ran by black people, that is basically a shithole.
We are seeing a troubling rise in violence involving teenagers and children. WJZ is live at the Inner Harbor, where police found a large gathering of teens last night. Alex Glaze has more on the concerns.
Yeah, Nikki, this increase in youth violence is part of a national issue that we're actually seeing across the country among young people, and the increase in violence. But this is a complex issue that has no real simple answers. But there's definitely an issue here, and one community activist says that there needs to be new solutions to get different results.
A 15-year-old boy was arrested in connection with the shooting death of Ernest Hall. Hall was killed last month. 5 others were shot in northwest Baltimore. This, the latest example of the growing problem of youth violence in Baltimore City since the start of the new year. Since the start of 2023, 5 kids under 18 have been fatally shot. Another 21 have been injured by gunfire, according to Baltimore police.
Okay, and I mean, that's just the reality of the situation in Baltimore. I've done so many stories about Baltimore, whether it be crime or education, where you have kids that literally can't read, can't write, can't do math at grade level. It's terrible, okay? But again, you know, they tell us that, you know, hey, all we need is this progressive black utopia and everything will be great, right? Everything will be great. However, I have yet to see it, right? I've yet to see it. But again, in this video, we got to talk about Baltimore, who, like I told you guys, they have a young black scholar problem. And the problem is so bad that they have implemented a curfew, okay? A curfew that is being enforced by volunteers and not necessarily the police. And I want to go ahead and play a news clip for you guys of an explanation of how this curfew works, because what they tell us is that some of these young scholars are not really criminals, okay? They're not bad people or bad kids that have been raised improperly by their parents. No, it's not that. They just need things to do, right? They need jobs, okay? They need opportunity. They need resources, okay? This is what the wokes tell us. So again, they don't want the youth interacting with police, so they want them interacting with volunteers instead, who, you know, come by at night in sketchy vans to pick them up if they're violating the curfew. I want you guys to take a look at this clip.
It never had to get this bad in the first place.
Community member and activist Mark Cannon was one of many Baltimoreans at City Hall Wednesday, all here to learn more about the city's new initiative aimed at engaging youth when school lets out. It's called Be More This Summer, a combination of structured youth activities, social work, and a curfew for kids that aims to keep the role of police limited.
BPD will be not taking any information from the youth. We will not be transporting the youth or arresting the youth for curfew violations.
Instead, if officers see a crowd of 10 or more kids, they'll call the Youth Connection Center. Volunteers and city staff will show up and encourage young people to go to one of their rec center sites. There, kids will find activities, a place to sleep, and food. They'll also offer music festivals, cookouts, and more throughout the summer. At the end of the night, parents will be called. Curfew infractions will be implemented as needed, putting the responsibility on those parents. If a kid refuses the services, peer ambassadors will be called in.
We will be leveraging those young folks to try to be that strong, encouraging force. It is our intention to be relentless. And quite frankly, we believe that the level of relentlessness will have young people dispersing, right?
The goal is to bring the community together in caring for Baltimore's kids. Cannon says he just hopes this new plan will work.
What I hope we can do is get these young people off of the street and get them to resources.
Boy, I gotta tell you, man, progressives, some of them have a good heart, okay? They have good intentions, but they are so naive about the world and human nature that this is why they just don't belong in leadership, right? They don't belong in leadership at all, okay? Because I've done stories like this. Like, for example, out in West Hollywood, LA, where they basically defunded the police and replaced them with woke ambassadors, right? Security ambassadors, right? Basically unarmed people that just sit on the corner and basically watch criminals commit crime, right? Because they don't actually stop crime. They don't prevent crime. They don't do anything, right? They call the police like a normal person would, right? But again, for whatever reason, West Hollywood thought that that would be a good idea and that somehow that would deter crime, just for them to have to basically turn around and refund the police because that program failed after a video went viral of two of the woke ambassadors just sitting on the side of the street watching people fight, right? Again, it's hilarious. So with that being said, we got this program out in Baltimore where you have these, I guess, woke ambassadors, right? These volunteers who get called in by the police because police can't interact with the teens, right? They can't enforce the curfew. Because remember, police are dangerous for black people, right? Especially black teenagers, young black men, police are dangerous, okay? So you can't have the police interact with them. You got to call in a social worker instead who's going to pull up in some van, some volunteer van, and is going to apparently try to convince the kids to go to some sketchy curfew center where they're going to get food and shelter and help, right? Amazing, okay? These people are living in fantasy world. What do you think is going to happen, okay? Don't you think it's a reason why you have these teenagers, some of whom, again, as young as 13 years old, that are out at night, hanging out at, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night? What do you think is going to happen, right? Do you think that they're just going to, be okay with some random person pulling up and trying to, tell them to go to some random sketchy place? I'm just saying, everybody knows how this could possibly end for one of these volunteers or teenagers, okay, if something goes off the rails, which is exactly what happened. Take a look.
It is the first violent incident we have seen since the curfew went into effect 2 weeks ago.
Jeff Abel is live with the latest, first on Fox. Jeff?
Well, the mayor is insisting tonight there will be no changes in protocol, even after vandals shattered a window of a city van with volunteers inside.
We know that vandalism happens everywhere in this country every day.
Mayor Brandon Scott was downplaying today the vandalism of a youth curfew van that happened while youth curfew volunteers were inside.
And we know that things have happened to vehicles consistently across this world. But what we won't do is highlight the extreme.
It was a little before midnight Saturday night here on Denham Circle in Cherry Hill when a city van, very similar to this one, was vandalized, and volunteers inside were forced to retreat. According to a statement from the mayor's office, at approximately 11:34 p.m., an engagement van was attempting to park and engage a group of young people when it was struck by an unidentified object that shattered the back window of the vehicle. Staff immediately followed protocol and notified their supervisor, who instructed them to return to the C.C. Jackson Recreation Center and debrief.
They were probably defending themselves from what they feared. Here you have some people trying to pick them up at night in a white van?
The city's new curfew enforcement effort relies on volunteers, not police, to engage youth. The president of the police union insists it poses a high risk to volunteers, writing today that some of these juvenile curfew violators are in fact criminals. Some don't hesitate to violently engage with the police. Why would they hesitate to do the same with a volunteer?
What we have to do is not sensationalize things.
He's the one that sensationalized it when he came up with this idea of a curfew.
No one inside the van was injured when vandals shattered the rear window, but with summer now beginning, critics fear what else could happen next.
It puts kids at risk, it puts volunteers at risk, it puts police at risk, and it has only exacerbated a bad situation and made it a catastrophe.
Yeah, so common sense wins again, right? Wokeness is antithetical to common sense because what this was a woke policy, right? It was a policy that was constructed based off woke ideology that, hey, we don't need to be arresting criminals, right? We don't need to demonize kids, okay? They just need more resources, right? They need to deal with social workers, okay? And volunteers, unarmed volunteers who are going to tell them to, hey, can you please go inside, right? Now, none of these people actually thought about, well, what happens when the social worker or the volunteer tells the kids to go inside, okay, because they're violating the curfew, and then they refuse, right? What happens after that? I'm just saying. I mean, I don't think they really thought this through. I'm not surprised that you had kids, young scholars, most likely they were black. I'm just guessing because the city is like 60-some% black, right? So you had young black scholars basically assault the van. Again, the mayor, the woke mayor, Brandon Scott, calls it vandalism. It's not vandalism. They straight up assaulted, they attacked the van because they had sketchy people trying to pull up on them and tell them where to go, right? And what to do. Low key, I don't really even blame the kids because, again, you're talking about being 11 o'clock at night and you got sketchy vans trying to come up to you and tell you to go somewhere. Again, this is just a terrible plan from the get-go. I'm not sure how I feel about the curfew because I think that ultimately, in the day, it comes down to the parents, right? In regards to making sure that kids aren't out late at night, okay? It's the parents' fault. And the one thing I do like about this policy is that they do fine the parents when the kids are taken off the street or whatever, okay? So I do like that. But if you're going to have this curfew, you have to have it be enforced by armed police, right? It has to be enforced by police. There's a reason why we have police deal with these type of situations, okay? Because the wokes keep trying to tell us that the police are not equipped. They should be dealing with these type of situations. But time and time again, we see what happens when you have unarmed individuals deal with people or kids or teenagers who are potentially violent criminals, right? Things like this happen. People get hurt, okay? The police is already overwhelmed dealing with these young black scholars. They can't really handle the situation. And you expect community volunteers who are unarmed, by the way, to deal with this? Again, violent criminals do not respond with peaceful requests, right? It doesn't matter if it comes from a police officer or a, community member. Violent criminals respond to threats of violence, right? If there's a threat of violence, then a violent criminal will respond, okay? It is what it is. Again, the kids that are out at night breaking the curfew in the first place, there's an issue with the parents, right? There's an issue with how they're being raised in the house because they should have been allowed out like that in the first place. So again, you're likely here dealing with criminals who don't respect authority, okay, who are not going to follow the rules, who don't care about the law, whose parents are probably not there, who probably not raising them right in the first place. You're already dealing with, again, possible criminals or future criminals, right? Again, what did you think was going to happen? But again, this is your city when it's run by progressives. This is progressive ideology. Instead of just old school, lock them up, right? Old school, arrest people. Old school, throw them in jail, throw them in prison. Nah, we can't do that, right? We got to try to do all this other woke stuff, right? That makes absolutely no sense, that ignores human nature, and this is what you get, right? Baltimore is Wakanda, okay? It's Wakanda. It's the Wakanda utopia that they told us that would happen if, you have progressive policies and mostly black people in the city. I'm just saying, right? Didn't really turn out the way that they said it would in the Marvel comics. But no doubt, it is Wakanda, right? It's Wakanda. So, I mean, look, here's the thing, man. When will these people realize that the reason why their cities are in such terrible shape is because of the leadership? It's because of the politicians. It's because of the people that they vote for, right? If you continue to vote for progressive criminal justice reform, progressive policing, you're going to get progressive crime, right? That's what you're going to get, right? It's never going to stop. And the violence is going to continue because all you're doing is emboldening criminals. You give them slaps on the wrist. You're making excuses for them, okay? You're trying to treat them like they're the victims, right? They're a victim of their circumstance instead of just calling it what it is. Some of these kids are criminals and they're being raised by parents who have no business having kids. And this is the reason why this is happening, right? So again, I agree with finding the parent, right? That's probably the best thing that comes out of this. But all that other stuff about them going to youth centers and giving them things to do, and you having these woke volunteers try to keep them in line, all that stuff is nonsense. It's never gonna work. Law-abiding kids already have things to do, right? They have plenty of things to do. They're gonna participate in youth centers in the community and do all that other stuff. And kids that are not law-abiding, the criminals, they're gonna be criminals, and you got to lock the criminals up. Period. That's it. Okay, but hey, what do I know? I'm just some random dude on the internet. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.